What's up, my friends? How's it going again? It's Carpo once more with another video from the depths of my soul, my heart and soul. I just got back from a trip from to Soak, which is the regional Burning Man regional, rather. A lot of people aren't aware that they have those, and they're surprised. What do you mean? There's local Burning Man? Nevada is where Burning Man is held, but it's actually been renamed recently Nevada Regional, just to give a little more, respect to all the other states that have their own. And most states have one, as far as I know. And out here it's called Soak, and I've been going every year for the last 8 years. I think I missed 1 year, maybe 2, but I know I've been to at least 6 of them. But anyhow, it's the place where I feel completely at home. A place where everybody there is just on the same, I wouldn't say the same level, because that insinuates that there is some sort of a status or, it doesn't work that way. It's that everyone's on everyone has the same understanding that we're there to have fun, we're there for individuality and to do our own thing, and to respect one another. No matter what you are wearing, no matter what you look like, you will not be made fun of at Soak or at Burning Man. It's one of the things that will get you kicked out, is actually harassing or teasing another person. It's one of the few things they won't put up with. You can walk through the campground with a megaphone screaming, "Get the fuck up," at 6 in the morning, and there's nothing anybody can do. But when it comes, and people have, there's all kinds of jokers, and it's kind of a carnival-like atmosphere. But Soak is a particular group of Portland burners, so whereas Burning Man attracts people around the world, there's a very specific type of Northwesterner, as we know that every region has kind of their own attitude and demeanor. And it's pretty funny to see so many people who are so kind-hearted and care so much about each other, but won't put up with any bullshit and a lot of cynicism and sarcasm, but a lot of fun. And the one thing is about it is everything is free. There's nothing sold at these events. If you want to bring your design, your art, your creation, you can do so. And nobody's going to, stop you from bringing some crazy, wild, propane-powered dragon breathing flames. But you will not get paid for it. And you cannot sell anything or vend on site. The only one thing that was sold at Soak is the ice, and that only recently started a couple of years ago because there's nowhere to get ice out there. So we just did it to start selling it by the bag for the people who need it. There's the bars and and everybody with their personal coolers actually. So this is my 3rd year with ice, and that's my little ice badge from this year. And each year is a theme. This year was superstition. Last year was science, and the year before that was called Level Up, and it was like based on 80s video games. And you don't have to, of course, stick with a theme, but people, it just gives people something to go on. And since last year was science, this was the 13th Soak, so they did the superstition. So there was all kinds of things like, spin the wheel or take a fortune, and there's these little creative things people create where write out a letter, and you can open up these little, fortunes, and it's kind of like, someone tried to explain Burning Man. They said it's like an acid trip, in the sense that you can't explain it. You just have to go there. And, which is kind of, along those same lines. Of course, a lot of people would associate psychedelics with Burning Man and with these events. And I would say that they're definitely not, it's not the kind of place where you have to go to take psychedelics to have fun. It's the kind of place where if you do go and take psychedelics, you will have a lot of fun, though. And for a lot of people, psychedelics are kind of a renewal process. And so for me, when I go to Soak, that's one of the events, and it's usually Saturday night, that I'll take a pretty good dose of LSD and sit back and spend the night. While everybody else likes to do the nightlife and travel around and look at the lights, some people like to go out and go dancing. Sometimes I'll do that, but I found this time that, for at least that night, what I really wanted to do was just kick back by my tent with my friends that were there, or my oldest son and his friend, and then some other campers that we were staying with, that we just met there, but ended up being really cool people. And that was one of the things, is that that night, everybody kind of took their own psychedelic and did their own thing. But coming back the next day, we sat there all day at camp and talked about life, intuition, the meaning behind reality, if you will. And never anywhere in my life have I been to a place where so many people completely understand where you're coming from when you say something. People who actually think about the same things. People who say, like this guy that I was staying with, Xander, he was the coolest dude. Him and his girlfriend, we just met him there. And when we got to talking, we were just so similar, it was ridiculous. He was like another kind of a guy who he always got his nitrous canister, in his little stash, and we started talking about psychedelics, and he was saying how the next day after psychedelics is generally when you really get to assess and process it, and that's exactly how I feel. I wanted to say about tripping here, it's that for me, taking LSD is a chore in a way. I get a little bit anxious about it, and while it can be fun, in order for me to take enough to really get some good processing done, the first few hours can be a little bit overwhelming. And I'd say the last few hours can also be a little bit exhausting if you want to just get to sleep. But there's a very peak point in there, about 3 hours in to about 5 hours to 6 hours in, where your brain has rewired itself, so to speak, and you're able to take certain ideas about your life and things that you want to work on and think about them calm, collected, and clearly, and see things so clear and understand things so well about yourself and about the world you live in. And for anyone who's never done psychedelics, there's no way for me to explain that or express it, but I'll just say this, that this weekend was like a renewal for my faith in meaning, or rather, not meaning, but faith in the cosmic mind. Confirming once again that there is a point to it all. And as much as we can fool ourselves with delusions and convince ourselves that things are true, there are certain things that we pick up on and that cannot be disputed in our own minds, and they don't need to be. For me, this whole trip was based on this and that. And you'll hear, like Alan Watts say that. It's hot and cold, up and down, left and right, back and forth. Everything has extremes and then a point. For example, hot and cold to us means nothing to a star. Hot and cold, and the difference between temperatures of hot and cold is just ludicrous. That, other beings, rocks don't care about that temperature range, or neither do stars, and it's a matter of our perspective that we have from our five senses is what gives us our view of the world. And we've learned to live with those five senses. And they help us to, understand this 3D reality as best we can. And then there's a human aspect that yearns for greater understanding, deeper understanding. The problem is that we can't always break down those walls that we have, because they're set up to protect us. And there are millions of years of evolution that have led us to have to protect ourselves over time. Fight or flight is a natural reaction. And when we try to think about things, it can be painful. It can be downright difficult to actually sit and think about, what should I do? How can I better my life? And then all these other thoughts creep in. When you take psychedelics, it shuts down that frontal cortex and that thinking and allows the rest of your brain to, let's just say, hyper-connect or whatnot. Now, the way that we see hallucinations, I'm fascinated with fractals and geometry, and I really analyze it and I try to draw it out. It has to do with the way that information is processed in the brain, in our visual cortex. And apparently, they're not exactly sure, but it has to do with the way that the membranes and our cells are separated, and how LSD seems to open that up and allow those to have more hyperconnectivity, meaning that slight changes in sound or, heat or cold can affect that and actually create interesting visuals in our brains that can be changed by just hearing different music. And it's pretty fascinating. I'm very observant of visuals and hallucinations, and they are very, very fascinating to me. It's sort of like a frequency of the brain, if you will. And so with psychedelics, I definitely say I have, and not just psychedelics, but MDMA, because usually on my soak weekend I'll take MDMA one night and then take LSD the next night. You know? And that's usually my thing, because MDMA allows me to feel very close and connected to people, and very talkative, and I want to hang out a lot more than I do when I take L. So the whole trip was just the whole week. I don't even know where to go with this. It was like I just wanted to kind of get into, explaining my weekend, but really I wanted to go lean towards the psychedelics, because I really believe that they can help a lot of people. It's I've spoken in depth about them in the past. I know that a lot of people had mentioned Joe Rogan to me and said that, hey, you should talk with him or do a podcast or something. And I've said things to the effect of that he's a little bit of a turnoff to me. And I wanted to kind of clarify that now. I think Joe Rogan's pretty cool, and he's actually changed a little bit over the time. He used to be a little bit more. I think my problem was that he cussed too much, and when he talked about things like DMT, a lot of people are like, what do you think of DMT? And I don't think much of it anymore. I've done a lot of it. I've smoked it a lot. I bought a bunch back in the day, and every single time was an amazing experience. But only amazing because you're basically looking down a swirling tunnel of alien entities or gnomes or trolls and hearing all these crazy sounds, and in the end, it's gone and there's nothing to gain. The experience is too short and it's too intense. And that's why, yes, it's weird, and it could be a strange introduction to maybe tell a person, hey, there's something outside of this reality, however a person wants to perceive it. But my belief is that taking a longer duration psychedelic, like a good 6 to 8 hour trip, is what is needed to really process. But it's just amazing the next day how you can process these things and see very clearly things in your life that need to be changed. And at a point, and this has happened to me in the past, you just feel there's nothing left to learn at the moment. So you have to, down the line, open up another chapter. And for me, I want to make my life not only the best that I can make it, and as enjoyable as possible, but also realize that there will be hardships, and be realistic. I just want to be a realistic person in life. And that's why when I take psychedelics, if there's any bullshit in my life that I'm putting out there, if I'm faking it in any way, if I'm not giving it my all, or I need to try harder, that always comes to mind. Whether maybe you need to do more around the house, or maybe I need to get my car out of the driveway, that kind of stuff. Little things that like you just tend to push away. All of that comes forward, and you're able to deal with it in a constructive manner. So, for example, when I'm in that state, it's not that a bunch of worries come to mind and I start fearing the things I need to do. It's that life says, hey, it's not that big of a deal, but you'll be happier when you do this or that. And it's whether it be your own subconscious or the universal mind, it doesn't really matter and isn't really relevant. Psychedelics have been used so successfully for so long to get people in touch with their own psyche. And I wish more people were able to experience that need it, because there are so many people out there who could benefit greatly from a controlled, organized experience on MDMA or LSD or psilocybin. And a lot of people are afraid of it, and I don't blame them, but there are studies that are being done by like MAPS. There's psychedelic research groups, and there's also Johns Hopkins University has been doing a lot of studies on these things over the last few years, and it looks like MDMA may be prescribed or available by prescription for people with PTSD by the year 2021, I believe. So we're moving forward in this, and one day we might look back at as humans and say, it's too bad that we saw these as drugs, because people fear altered states. And society never seems to fear alcohol. And it's very interesting to me that you can take a moderate amount of alcohol and black out, you can slur your speech, you can crash your car, whereas you could take a moderate dose of psychedelics, or even a heavy dose, and no matter how hard I am tripping, I can usually speak. And my mind is aware that I'm conscious, and I'm actually gaining and learning from the whole experience. So if psychedelics weren't seen as something scary that we've been taught, and we're rather seen as a tool for expanding and understanding, maybe we could realize that it allows us to push away things that we don't need and tear down walls between our mind, our own parts of our brain. You think of your, there's a million metaphors I could come up with for it, but there is a lot of scientific research to show that the brain is much more active under the LSD. It lights up. I mean, all the areas of the brain become active, and the people who have had these experiences can tell you what they've gained from it. So there's no way for science to define how much a person has really, gained insight-wise, but we can take measurements on depression and ask people how they feel. We can measure their, their brain's reaction and do the best we can, but these things have grown alongside us. LSD may be synthetic, but it was, derived from ergot fungus. LSA is very similar, and that's from morning glory seeds. And psilocybin is very similar in structure as well, and that's naturally grew in mushrooms alongside mankind. So Terence McKenna had his own theories about these things. For me, it's not about speculating and saying everybody should try these things. It's more about just saying that I think a lot of people really could benefit. For me, it was a matter of reconfirming what I already knew. But after a while, you really start to respect those trips where you can see that insight. And only the individual can decipher that. So anyway, I'm rambling on about psychedelics. So awesome weekend. Met some really cool people. And I guess I should tell some funny story of while I'm still doing this. There was actually this guy next to us who camped. Now at Soak, music was all night. Okay, all hours of the day. Boom, boom. I mean, if you can't handle, bass music, because some people dance all night. And this guy in the tent next to me, I heard him grumbling and griping, and he boom, boom, at 5 a.m, he pounds on his friend's RV. And I hear him, I guess I asked the dude later what he'd said, and he had said, "This place is not family friendly, god damn it." And he hit the guy's floor. He had 2 kids and his wife with him. He went back to his tent, and I heard him, because I was in the tent next to him, and he's like, "This is bullshit." He's like, "I'm gonna go up there, cut that guy's power, take a shit in his generator." And I just laughed. I was like, I couldn't help it out loud. I said, "If you think that's bad, it's gonna be worse tonight." And then it was silence. And within an hour, they were packing up their tent and leaving. And the friends that they were staying with, were, one of the guys was a ranger, a Black Rock Ranger, Burning Man. And so his friend wanted to go and check it out, and it was not for him. The thing was, he was saying that it was too loud for the kids. The kids were crashed out, sleeping. The dude had been drinking wine all evening, and he woke up with a hangover in the middle of the night. So it's a matter of, make your choices wisely. Alcohol is not always the best thing to drink en masse if there's going to be music going all night. But I wanted to say that I lost my vape pen, my other one, just like this. I dropped it up by the burn while I was tripping balls, and I got back to my camp and I was bummed. I was like, "Oh no, I lost my vape." But luckily I keep an identical backup vape for that. So I used this for a while. The next day I walked over to the Ambassador. It's this little stand, it's the lost and found. And I said, "Hey, did somebody find a vape just like this?" And pulls it right out of a glove, gave it back to me. Then I got home and realized I'd lost my camera during that trip. And of course, I checked my voicemail and there was a message, because I keep my phone number on my stuff, and somebody had returned that as well. Everything that gets lost, when they open that lost and found bin, is full of phones and, phones and vapes and digital devices, everything you can imagine. This is a group of really honest people, because they learn from those principles of, and I hate to say that the psychedelics are probably a huge part of that, but with the things I've seen from psychedelics, the honesty that they've taught me, I know that a lot of the folks I talk to, they get it. They're in the same exact, realization. You can't go around saying psychedelics will heal everyone or make you a great person. No. They'll just reveal some inner truths about you that you need to work on if you need to, or you can choose to ignore. So